Mhm. I don't know many people that want to. Exactly. It's difficult. Yeah, it's scary. It's traumatizing, both physically and economically to all countries involved. It's a lot. And I don't think the vast majority do not want that. So keep that in mind. All right, y'all. Thanks for discussing that a little bit. Again, stay well, stay healthy. We're going to talk about the analysis assignment that is coming up. It's actually due Friday, and for some reason, I'm thinking that today is the 14th when it's the 7th. I'm like, skipped a whole week. I'm like, oh my gosh, we haven't talked about it. But anyways, it's the 7th, and it's your analysis is due this week. You probably haven't come to it yet because you just finished with, the quizzes and the Unit 1 test. So you're not behind or anything, but I definitely wanted to start talking to you guys about it before you get started on the assignment so that you go into it knowing exactly what to do. So it's not something that should take you um, a very long time because it is assigned on the same day that it's due. Obviously, if you need a couple of more days, you can. Um, but it's done that way because it's not designed to take, a week. It's not a research paper. Um, it may indeed take you a couple of hours, but past that, it's not designed to do that. So I want to make sure that you guys can get it done efficiently, but just not have it not be so overwhelming. Because I know to say analysis, it can be a little bit stressful when it doesn't have to be. So, um, have you started thinking about your analysis? Have you gotten to any part of that topic yet? Do you have any concerns? I'm positive that you've done it several times before. I have a little formula that I like for you all to follow. Good. So I think the most important thing that I like to mention about the analysis is that you do not want to summarize the story, especially to fill space and to have enough words to fulfill a word requirement. Because, first of all, no, a summary is not an analysis. Um, and for this particular assignment, there is no word count. If it mentions it somewhere in the lessons, which I don't think it does, but if it does, if you come across it and I missed it, ignore that because I'm only basing this on content, not a word count. And if you need some sort of guide, which I do think that it's stated, if I'm not mistaken, in the directions, it says 1 to 2 pages. And I know a lot of times that can be like, well, how many words is this in that 1 to 2 pages? Does it even say that? Let me see. I don't think it does. Um, but that's usually a good rule of thumb for those of you that really want some parameters to work with. So 1 to 2 pages is good. No summary, just to summarize. And we'll talk about what you can use summary for as we move through some of the tips and tricks and things to do, things that are expected for your analysis. So before we get there, in your own words, tell me, what is a close reading? What is a literary analysis? What's an argument? What's a thesis? And what is evidence? You can type it in the chat or write on the board. Oh, that's a good point. You know, okay, you should have it now. Man, this tea is really hot. So have you ever done a close reading? I'm getting blank stares. The silent treatment. Like, not so much. Good, that's a good definition. Thank you. Literary analysis, an analysis of the literary elements, such as theme and idea and the way that the author conveys those things. Okay, yes. So how would you do it? Like, give me some examples how you would do a close reading. Good. An argument is an opinion that one supports with reasons and evidence. Argument, brief summary with opinions of a poem or section of a poem or other work. Close reading, reading a work carefully to look for essential elements like theme, mood, character, and evidence supporting the theme. Think about the theme and then find evidence the author includes to support it. Yeah, reading between the lines, finding the implicit meanings, not just explicit. Good. Evidence, parts of the text used to in order to support your argument. So parts of the text used in order to support your argument. Good. Thesis is the takeaway from the work. Good. A statement that the entire essay will focus and support. Yay. Okay, so you guys got it. All right. So here are the course definitions. If you want to take a screenshot, please feel free to do so. All right. Are we good? Okie doke. Okay, so it looks like some of you may have done a close reading. Yes? No? I'm going to poll you. Who has done a close reading and who has never, ever in life done a close reading? I think we've all been there. Oh, that's okay. Oh, because you're on mobile. Okay, so it looks like it's split 50-50, which is pretty interesting. So this is what a close reading will typically look like. More or less, this is kind of a lot. It's a little bit more excessive than your normal close reading, but in general, this is what a close reading will look like. You'll have the highlights, you'll have notes in the margins, definitions, what your takeaway is, arrows, underlines, just different stuff to help you analyze whatever passage or poem or story that you are reading. So, when you do a close reading, it's not just about the highlighting, it's also about the notes that you include with it. Because if you're just highlighting, yeah, that's great for your examples, but what does this mean? What was the point of that? What did you get from that? What was the takeaway? So, and also when you're doing a close read, you want to take a small section at a time. Don't ever try to close read a chapter in a book. Like that will literally, it will take you so long to do that. And it's just you can't do it. I mean, you could, but it's going to take you a really long time, and there's really no point in doing that unless that is the book that you are writing like a dissertation on. So yeah, you want to look at small segments at a time. So in high school, you will take either poetry or short stories and do a close read. You can chunk it easier and do a close read of those. In AP, which obviously is still high school, you'll move into the longer close readings, like in novels and longer short stories. But then in college, if you go into the humanities, you'll do larger works, usually novels. But even those, you're not close reading the entire thing. You're chunking it. You read the novel once and then you go back. And of course, as you're reading it, you want to mark places where, okay, this is kind of what I will be analyzing throughout this book. So I want to mark it. Um, that I need to come back. And then you go back and then you chunk it into a close reading. So chunking is really important. You just don't want to try to close read large sections at a time. It's overwhelming and it takes a long time. All right, so I'm going to pull you again. Which of these best describes a reason for close reading? To find out what happens in a story, there's a poll. To analyze how different elements create meaning, to form a personal opinion about the story, or to compare the story to other stories. What do you guys think? What is the point? Okay, yes, you are right. It is indeed B, to analyze how different elements create meaning. So one last exercise um, before we kind of move into the breakout rooms and we start. After that, we're going to start talking about your assignment, and I wanted to leave enough time for you guys to ask any questions that you might have regarding that and to explain the PEE format to you all once again. So for this one, please use the whiteboard or you can use the chat, whichever one works best for you. So place the 4 steps of the close reading process in the correct sequence. And the reason why we're talking about close reading so much right now is because it is a part of the analysis process and you'll have to do it for um, goodbye to all of that, which is the short story that you will read for your analysis essay. That is so strange. Like it says that that you guys have it. Does no one have it? My goodness. Maybe if I take it away? What about now? Do you guys have it now? So double no. Okay, that's okay. Well, at least you're not alone. No one has it, um, which is so strange. But anyways, at least Neuro isn't allowing people's cell phone conversations to come through. So that's something. We'll take the no whiteboard over that. All right. So what do you guys think goes into the first square? So before we examine, we have to do something else. We have to divide first. Yes, we have to chunk it first. So you pick a section that you want to focus on. So divide the text into manageable chunks first. Okay, shorten it. Then what do you want to do? Yes, you want to read through it. You want to read through it, take notes, and write brief summaries as you read. So this is just for the close reading. So again, usually the close reading comes after you have already read through it one time in its entirety. So you read through the whole thing once, then you go back and do the close reading. So first you divide it into that manageable chunk, and then you take notes and write summaries as you read those chunks. It could be one or two or three, just depends on, how long this text is that you're analyzing. The third step, you want to examine the structure of the work. And then the fourth step is to look for meaning as you read it or as you reread it deeply. Okay, those are the steps. So, do we understand um, the text structure, what that means? Can you give me an example? I guess that's a better question to ask. Can you give me an example of a text structure? Good, like the narrative arc. What other ways may a text be structured? Yeah, a lot of times for fiction and a lot of nonfiction as well. We have the narrative arc where the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. What else? Like, for example, in a persuasive essay, how might that be structured? Yeah, reasons and rebuttals. ethos, pathos, logos. Another one is comparing and contrasting. That's another text structure. If you are giving directions, you may have like a list. That's a different structure. There's what else? What else? Chronological order. So we have a lot of different ways that a text is structured. And then there's other, more, I guess, specific things like uh, short sentences or really long sentences and lengthy paragraphs or shorter paragraphs, things like that. So you're looking at kind of like the overall piece. All righty. So really quickly, what are two other ways that you can provide supporting evidence other than summarizing? So we have summarizing. What are two other ways to provide supporting evidence for our points that we make in an analysis? So we can summarize a piece of the text to support our point. What else? Because a good rule of thumb is to present your evidence in a variety of ways. What are those ways? One starts with a P, the other starts with a Q. Yes, quotes and paraphrasing. Good. So as you write your analysis, just think about that, provide some different ways that you are presenting your examples from the text. All right, so we're going to do a little activity where I'm going to send you guys to breakout rooms. There should be about 5 per room. So 4 rooms, 5 in each. And I want you to look at this very short passage. And since obviously we can't use the whiteboard for some unknown reason, you guys can chat about it or get on the mic and talk about it. I want you guys to find at least 2 examples of literary devices or literary elements of the text. And then think about how that contributes possibly to the overall theme of the passage, which might be a little bit more difficult to do if you have never read David Copperfield, and because this is very short. But if you can find at least 2 literary elements, you're doing good. We're going to spend just about 10 minutes in the breakout rooms before we come back and talk about it. Okay, any questions? Are we good to go? All right. Hello. I figured that. That's why I went around. You guys were wrapping up, so I was like, okay, we only need about 30 seconds here. All right, I'm gonna bring everyone back. Welcome back, guys. There was some really good discussions going on. Once I sent you guys to the breakout rooms, I realized that I should have been a little bit more explicit in um, what you should be looking for. So I didn't want you guys to spend too much time trying to find a simile in there that was just not there. So hopefully you got my little announcement. Like, what? I don't see it. What is she talking about? Um, so yeah, so it looked like you guys were able to pick out the point of view, the narrator. What else?
I can share if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so we saw a bunch of things. We saw that there's foreshadowing, point of view, diction, symbolism, and some imagery, and it conveyed like the significance of his story, and it like drew us in. It was like a hook almost, like the whole thing was a hook. Because if you were watching it as a movie, you think about like the clock striking at the same time he's crying, and like the camera zooming in on the baby, and it's like, why is this so important? And we don't understand how that's related to him being the hero of his own life. So we just want to keep reading. And it's also kind of like foreshadowing, and that's why we want to keep reading. And the fact that it's from person point of view means like he's allowed to tell the story the way he wants to tell it, and it is his life, so he has the right to do that. And it just like it helps him convey exactly what he wants to convey, which makes it more interesting to us. And like that brings us to diction because he's making everything really important. Like whether I shall turn out to be the hero, and these pages must show like is urgent, and I record like he even fact checked when he was born, and and the clock was like a symbol of the importance of his birth and how like his life is significant and people should keep reading about it and see like what he's talking about. So that's what we got.
That was a phenomenal explanation. Yes, beautifully said. So, yes, that's a very good. You guys got a lot out of this paragraph. That was awesome. Um, so with all of that being said, which was all spot on, would you conclude that he is a reliable narrator or an unreliable narrator? And why?
I mean, sorry, I think both because obviously he didn't actually cry at the same time the clock striked. He was just using that for like dramatic effect, but it was really obvious and I think people can tell. So I would trust him, but I would also keep yeah, I would like what Madison's saying. Like I'd take things with a grain of salt. But I know he's just trying to like capture our attention, which I appreciate because I don't want to read a boring book. And like he did record that he was born and like as he's been informed. So I mean, but I don't know. I haven't read enough to like know, but I think he's like pretty reliable, but just not like so reliable that we can just take everything he says as like God's word. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really good explanation as to why you think that he's, maybe a little bit of both.
I would tend to think that he is mostly reliable, but as Catherine said, he does kind of sensationalize everything for a dramatic effect. Mainly, I would mainly tend to trust him because he doesn't really use many absolute statements in here. I mean, I know that's not really necessarily like the best reason to like trust someone, but he says that he has been informed and believe on a Friday. It it was remarked, so he's showing that he didn't make this stuff up.
Yes,
It says he's being told this. He
exactly.
could be he could be lying or, like, sensationalizing that, but, from this, I would tend to trust him just because it says that he kinda mentions that he's not making this stuff up, that he has been told this by other people.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely correct. So he's giving us words from what he's been told, and he's letting us know that this is what he has been told. Right. So even his sensationalism of the facts may be added for dramatic effect. It's not enough to change the overall meaning. So yes, that's a good point. And then the very first sentence is basically telling us he may or may not be the hero of this story. That's for you to decide. So it kind of from there helps us to trust him as a more reliable narrator.
Yeah, like he's saying he needs to employ evidence. Like these pages must show. It's not I am the hero or I'm not the hero. It's like you look at my evidence and tell me what you think. And also about the exaggerating, I do that a lot. Like sometimes yeah, yeah, yeah. And like
Mhm.
sometimes I'm just like, oh, I had a life and death experience when I was in second grade because we were looking for houses and then I like ran across the street on a highway and it was like a busy road, but it wasn't a highway. And the person like stopped, like they saw me running and they were like all the way in the distance. Like they wouldn't have hit me anyway, but they stopped just to be safe. So like, but I was like, life and death experience. I could have died. So.
That is a really good example. Yes. These are all great points, you guys. Okay. All right. So you guys are on a roll today, and I absolutely love it. So that brings us to your assignment that is due on 3/10, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so as you get through the rest of this week and start working on this, I know you guys had a kind of a light week, but we're back to it. Reading and analyzing. So Joan Didion's 1967 essay, Goodbye to All That, recounts the author's experiences as a young woman living in New York City. Didion describes how she loved New York at first, feeling it to be a place of such great possibility and wonder that it scarcely felt real to her. Later, however, Didion begins to feel unsettled and depressed in New York. She comes to believe that she can no longer manage the small tasks of everyday life. So for your assignment, you are going to read, obviously you have to read the whole story first, okay? So not just the final section because it may not make sense. So read the entire short story first. Then when you get to your assignment, read or reread the final section of Goodbye to All That, beginning with the sentence, I could not tell you when I began to understand that. Then answer the question. In Goodbye to All That, Joan Didion writes that the lesson of her story is that it is distinctly possible to remain too long at the fair. Okay, so what does she mean by this? How does the final section of the essay portray how she came to this understanding, her feelings about it, and the consequences of it? So again, you can't really understand or conclude how she came to this understanding without reading the story in its entirety. Um, so then the assignment, write an analysis based on your close reading of the final section. In your analysis, be sure to include an analysis of the life choices Didion makes and the literary devices she uses to relate her experiences. All right, so the overall theme of the work is it is distinctly possible to remain too long at the fair. That is a theme. And you will go through and figure out first, what does that mean? which it will come to you as you read through that first part and even the final section. It will be like, okay, yeah, she was ready to go. She was ready to leave New York. And then look for some of those literary devices that she uses. There is symbolism. There are metaphors. There's a lot of imagery. And it's not just, hey, here's a symbol, but how does this symbol help to further or help to prove the theme of this work? Okay, does that make sense? Any questions? Okay. So a little more info. For your analysis, and please pay close attention to this so that you do not fall into the summarizing the story trap. You need an introduction paragraph with a strong, solid thesis statement. Remember, your thesis statement should be arguable. It should be something that there could be two sides to it, something that you have to prove in your body paragraphs. Okay? And that can be, or it should be, or it should have the theme somewhere in there. Okay? Also keep in mind your intro should start with a hook. It should have a bit of background information or brief summary of the story itself, and then your strong thesis as your last sentence. Keep in mind that you always, always, always in your intro need to have the title of the work and the author's name. So don't forget those. The next thing for this particular essay, 2 body paragraphs are sufficient. All right, 2 body paragraphs, that's sufficient. If you want to have 3, or if you feel like you have more to say, there's more literary elements that you want to discuss, 3 is good too. But just know that you could do it with 2. The next thing, follow the PEE strategy in your body paragraph. So again, this is what's going to help you avoid summarizing. So you have your topic sentence at the beginning of your body paragraph. Next, you have your point. What are you arguing here? What is the point? Then your example that comes straight from the work itself. And then your explanation. And the explanation can start with, this shows that. And then explain, what does this show? That helps you to stay away from summarizing the text. I just can't stress this enough. That's a trap that a lot of us get into when we are doing an analysis. Let's see. I don't hear it, but I would say we have 2 people on mobile. So those 2 folks on mobile, please make sure that your microphone is turned off on your actual device in the web browser. All right. And then of course you need that conclusion paragraph where you start out with the rewording of your thesis, and then a brief summary of your main points, and then your last sentence is kind of up to you what you want to say. Can be something to think about further, an interesting quote, a call to action of some sort, just whatever, however you like to conclude. All right, so do we have any questions regarding how to write an analysis? Okay, so one last slide and I will let you guys go. Be familiar with those literary terms. Think about what exactly are literary terms. And like we mentioned, we have point of view, we have structure, we have reliable and unreliable narrator. And then we have other things like imagery, similes, metaphors, rhetorical questions, things like that. So think about those things, and as you go through and you do your close analysis of that last section of the story, try to find those types of elements. Okay? Analyze specific items. So if you are talking about the impact of the metaphor for the work, make sure that that paragraph is focusing on the metaphor and how it furthers the theme or how it explains the theme of the work. What does it show? Again, that falls right in line with making an argument. Vary your support. Quote, summarize, and paraphrase. And of course, if you guys need any help at all past that, I am here. Send me a message on Skype and I will be more than happy to help you get this put together and organized and written. Okay? And that is it for today, guys. Thanks so much for coming. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you. Bye, guys. You're welcome.